That was a good one. Well, there's one way to find out. We'll start. And then you send a message. Can you hear all that? Or somebody in the room can try. And should be good now. Welcome, everybody. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivadadadi Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Banatadi Jamunatira Banatadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari 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 Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Banatadi Jamunatira Banatadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Especially thank you to the mothers
For
today
those
for
of you
joining.
that are
Um,
participating
all
from
glories to our mothers. Thank you for everything that you do
3 weeks in a
and
row,
for
pretty good.
coming today for this wonderful class.
Week number 2.
Today we'll learn about the ultimate
Because
mother,
the previous week was
Lord Krishna, and
honoring the appearance day
we
of
have a
Lord
very
Krishna.
special class
And
today
now we're going
and a
to
very
honor
special guest
Srimad
with us today.
Bhagavatam,
With us today is His
specifically
Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj.
the 6
Most of you already
questions,
know him.
6 answers
Maharaj
of
is a disciple
the
of
first
Srila
3
Prabhupada.
chapters of Srimad
I
Bhagavatam.
apologize. Last time I was wrong.
You know
He met Srila Prabhupada in
the whole format of
1971. Took initiation from Prabhupada
Puranas
in 1971. So
as
nearly
question
50
answer
years
format.
ago. And he's
There are
been
different
very, very
ways
kind to us to give us his
doing the
time
questioning, different
and give
ways
us a
of
seminar
answering.
on the Srimad Bhagavatam
In this
on the
case,
chapter entitled
Sutta
Divinity and Divine
Goswami
Service.
is
And the
responding
specific title of this talk
to
is 6
questions asked by the
questions
sages
and
of
6 answers.
Naimisharanya. The context
So these are the
goes
6
like
immortal
this,
questions,
found in the first canto.
6 eternal questions, and the 6 answers given by the sages.
Shortly after Krishna departs the world, there's a juncture,
Maharaj, we cannot hear you.
Sandhi in between, and then shortly thereafter, Kali Yuga
Yamuna
begins.
Jivan Prabhu, we cannot hear
These
Maharaj.
are sages, so they know what scripture says and they know what symptoms show Kali Yuga is a bad situation and gets worse and worse. And so, being sages, they wanted to do something. And so, the something they decided to do was to begin an extended yajna in the sacred forest of Naimisharanya. And as one yajna would finish, another would begin, and continuous yajnas for 10,000 years. That was for 1,000 years. That was their plan. So, in their midst came Shukadev Goswami, and toward the end of this first canto, they all honored Shukadev Goswami. But one of the persons who had heard Shukadev Goswami explain Srimad Bhagavatam was Sutta. When Shukadev Goswami narrated Srimad Bhagavatam the first time, Sutta Goswami was in the audience, and so they were very enthusiastic to hear from him, the sages headed by Shaunaka. And so in the first chapter, there's this introductory creating the scene. And then there's some questions that the sages put before Sutta Goswami. There's 6 identified to the assistants in identifying which are the 6 questions and answers. Largely comes from Jiva Goswami. Who else? Our great Vaishnava scholar Jiva Goswami. Of course, he heard from others, particularly Rupa Goswami. And so we have this list of 6 questions and 6 answers. So the way I'd like to approach this is start with the answers and connect the answers in that sequence one by one with the questions that come in chapter 1. So we're going to begin in chapter 2. After the introductions are made and the questions are presented respectfully before Sutta Goswami, I'm going to identify the sections. Before Sutta Goswami speaks in response to the questions, he does what a learned person will naturally do. He offers respects to those who he heard from and sources of wisdom that his understandings are dependent upon, and the Namaha section covers 5 verses and very elegant and appropriate verses articulated by Sutta. And right away, starting in verse 6 and 7. Sutta gets right down to business. He's responding to the questions that were asked by the sages, and I'm going to refer to them. Those of you that like to take notes, you can take notes. And those of you that don't like to take notes, we can circulate the material anyways. So you don't even have to take notes, but you can do both if you like. So the first question is found Canto 1, Chapter 1, text number 9. And I'll read the translation. Please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. Now remember, this is Kali Yuga, has begun, and it's very unpleasant ride for people who are involved in Kali Yuga. And people are lazy, misguided, and always disturbed and not going to go through the Vedas. And even if they try to go through the Vedas, they'll be cheated. And so can you make it really easy for us, please? Just like the absolute and ultimate good for everybody. That's the question. Absolute and ultimate good for all people, specific to this age of Kali, but at any time. So the answer is our next verse in chapter 2. It's text number 6. And those of you that know the verse, you can say it with me. It's nice to hear these verses. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhok suje ahaitaki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. So again, ultimate and absolute good for all people. Here's the answer. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So in case you're not completely satisfied, now you know why and what to do. Service to the transcendent Lord, that's without motivation and without interruption. Now, because we're covering an entire chapter, I can't go into details. It's very easy to go into details. Those people that like to speak Krishna Katha like to go into details, but circumstance and time span doesn't permit. Hetu means cause, and ahaituki means without cause. In this world, everything has an effect of some cause. Cause and effect is well known. So what's the cause of the ultimate good? There's no cause. And there's nothing that can stop it either. So let's, think of a continuum that's eternal. There's nothing on this end that starts it, and there's nothing on that end that can stop it, materially speaking. Unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service alone can completely satisfy the self, and that's the Atmarama message, completely satisfied. So the next question is, what's the essence of all scriptures? Again, people are in this age of Kali. We know it very well. We're sages, so we know that people in this age of Kali aren't going to take the trouble to go through all the scriptures and understand and have the capacity to understand the essence of all the scriptures. Could you summarize really simply for us what's the essence of all scriptures? Good question. That's question number 2 out of 6. And the answer is text number 7. And let's say it together if you know the verse. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janiyati Ashubhai Ragyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. The translation reads, by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Immediately means gradually. The potency is there for everything. If you're Katvanga Maharaj or someone that fully surrenders everything, or Bali Maharaj that fully surrenders everything, and for the rest of us, we don't surrender everything. And so the surrendering is gradual and the realization of knowledge and detachment is gradual. More like the sun rising in the morning is gradual. That's an example that Prabhupada has given about how self-realization works. It's like the sun rising in the morning, gradual. But the potency is there in the sun to illuminate, to drive away darkness and illuminate everything. So this devotional service is unmotivated and uninterrupted alone has, without other additional efforts, has the power, potency to awaken knowledge that we have forgotten and detach from the things that we're attached to, the material attachments. The potency is there in bhakti. And that's as an answer to the essence of all scriptures. Maybe some of you have seen the Hare Krishna movie. If you haven't, please view it. And if you have, view it another 6 times, because it's really wonderful. Years and money and effort and bhakti and everything was invested in making that film what it is. Twice in that film, Prabhupada has asked a question about other religions, and do you feel there's competition or conflict with other religions? And Prabhupada's immediate answer is no. The essence of is to awaken love of God. So whatever it is that can awaken love of God, that's wanted. There's no conflict. You awaken love of God. So that's the essence, because when devotional service is unmotivated and uninterrupted is taking place, then knowledge and detachment also take place. And if it's not full, then it's partial. But it's the experience of the practitioner of bhakti. So that's the first 2 questions. Ultimate and all-around good for all living beings, and the essence message of all the Vedas. Those are 2 really good questions. And the other ones are also really good. Then there's a series of verses that start with text 8 and runs for 8 verses to text 15, describing, in a simple way, it's describing work, the performance of duties in life, the work that one may do, and how bhakti alone is the desired attainment from what you do in this world, your duties, your activities, your life. Bhakti alone is the attainment to be pursued. And it says it positively and it says it negatively in many different angles. But that's the theme, the exaltedness of bhakti. Now, that was mentioned in previous answers. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha, for example. So bhakti has already been mentioned, and all, so one more time, all the things that one does in the course of life, the goal, the attainment, the fruit is bhakti. So one who understands that aligns everything they do with that goal, attaining from the heart real devotion to the Supreme. So we're almost halfway done with the chapter. There's only 34 verses and we're already at verse 15. In 16 through 21, some of you like to read Bhagavad-Gita, I'm sure. And you'll find 16 through 21 in many places, but one of those places is in Bhagavad-Gita, which you can look up later if you wish, but it's 7.2 Bhagavad-Gita. Knowledge of the Absolute is the chapter title. And at the beginning of the chapter, Krishna makes a very bold declaration. He's going to explain in this middle section of Bhagavad Gita how to achieve the topmost yoga, because that was at the end of chapter 6. Topmost yoga has two parts: what you do and what your body does and what your mind does. Your body is engaged in service and your mind is fixed on Krishna. Now, at the beginning of chapter 7, he says, now I'm going to explain how to do that, how to attain this topmost yoga. And very appropriately, in the purport of 7.1 comes these verses. The next set of verses, starting with text 17. And those of you that know the verses, you can say them with me. They're well-known verses, and just the sound vibration is purifying. But later you can look. 7.1 purport. Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyantakstoya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Saritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tadara Justamo Bhava Kamalo Bhadayaschaye Chaita Etar Anavidham Stittam Sattve Prasidati Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyante Riddhaya Grantis Chidyante Sarva Sanshaya Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Drishta Evat Manishware. And the translation is here. You can go back if you like and read the translation. These series of verses, very important. One of the importance, for example, is Rupa Goswami, in his writings describing the unfolding and the stages of bhakti, paraphrases what those verses are saying. That famous Adau Shraddha verse, Tat Tat Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivritti Shat, etc. It's just extrapolating from those verses what those verses are saying in other language. Very important sets of verses. It's right in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I'm going to explain how to engage in devotional service by which you can achieve the perfection of yoga. And those of you that are familiar with this celebrated Markine Bhagavat Dharma, the prayer that Prabhupada wrote when he arrived in the Boston Harbor and looked at Mission Impossible in front of him saying, my dear Lord Krishna, why have you sent me here? I'm carrying the message of Shuddha Sattva, and everyone here is absorbed in tamas and rajas. How are they going to understand? Mission impossible. And then he supplies these verses. This is how mission impossible is possible. It's the Bhagavad Dharma process given right in Canto 1, Chapter 2. And it's not even one of the 6 questions, and answers to one of the 6 questions. It's the process of devotional service that was described in the first 2 answers. Very important verses. Very important verses. Good to memorize them, good to refer to them, understand them, digest them, take them inside, make them part of your life. So that takes us through text 21. And then 23, 24, 25, those 3 verses, it's then describing forms of the Lord, the guna avatars, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and persons like to worship. Same message as we find in Bhagavad-Gita, divisions of faith. Everyone is going to worship somebody. I won't mention names of political figures that some people worship and some people want to depose. But, so somebody, a Bollywood star, or a rock musician, or a something. Somebody's going to, it's the nature of the soul to engage in worship of something. So those that don't understand transcendence, they'll worship something. Followers of the Vedas that don't understand transcendence, they'll worship something. So these worship of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh are described. And then following that, 26, 27, there's the general description of demigod worship. Those of you familiar with Bhagavad Gita, the same topics are covered in Bhagavad Gita. It's just expanded upon in this 2nd chapter. And then, of course, later on in the Bhagavatam expanded further. This is kind of a summary outline of the whole Bhagavatam's message. The conclusion of that little section is Vasudeva Krishna. Vasudeva meaning the son of Vasudeva, that's Krishna. He is the actual object of worship, and the others are indirect forms of worship of the actual object of worship. Same idea as in Bhagavad Gita. The worship that's done of others is done without proper understanding. Alpa medasam. They're making a mistake. But it's actually meant for Krishna. And then the final section of chapter 2 describes the Purusha avatars. The Purusha avatars are forms of Vishnu which are portions of a plenary portion of Krishna, all connected with the creation of the material realm. That's what Vishnu forms do. If you're not familiar with this portion of a plenary portion language, don't worry about it. It's language that Prabhupada used to make a differentiation between Krishna's direct expansions, like Balaram, and the Chaturvyuha in the spiritual realm, and then expansions of them, specific to the process of creation. That's the Vishnu form. So that's the terminology is Kala. Kala is translated as a portion of a plenary portion. If you don't like technical things, don't worry about it. It's just there for those who like technical things. The Sanskrit language is very precise, so the meaning is clear because the language is very precise. There's 5 verses that deal with the Vishnu forms. Just like, for example, when Mother Earth was disturbed by the overabundance of demoniac kings on earth, she was in great distress. So she went to the demigods, who went to Lord Brahma, who went to the abode of Vishnu. Demigods have the password. How to get to Svetadweep. And they went to the shore of the Milk Ocean, and they offered the Purusha Sukta prayers. The Purusha Sukta means prayers. Purusha Sukta prayers are found in the Rig Veda, and they're just honoring Vishnu, who is the Purusha avatar. So they offered the Purusha Sukta prayers, and Vishnu responded because he's a person. And he said what he said to the demigods. He will appear soon, and so many other things that he instructed Brahma in such a way that Brahma could hear. The others couldn't hear, but Brahma relayed what he said. So these Purusha avatars are very important. And when we continue next week with chapter 3, it continues on the Purusha avatar topic. So don't be surprised, that's coming attractions. But so the Purusha avatars is important. How to understand them in relation to the source of everything. The source of everything is Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. That's another important verse in coming up, chapter 3. So now there's 2 more questions that are answered in this section. And so question, it's very logical, but not chronological. Question 3 is answered in the final verse. So here's question 3. Well, for what purpose did Krishna appear? Text 12. And all these particular 6 questions, 6 answers, you'll get a copy of. Those of you that like to take notes, you can take note, you'll get a copy. The translation of text 12, all blessings upon you, O Sutta Goswami, you know for what purpose the personality of Godhead appeared in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva. So there's a question. They want to know what's the purpose. The Purusha avatars make the material world manifest, and then he who made it manifest enters into the world that he made manifest. So what is his purpose in doing that? They're not asking the purpose of the creation, they're asking the purpose of his entering into what he creates, the temporary material world. Why does he bother? Problematic. What's his purpose? And the answer is the final verse of chapter 2, which reads, thus the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by the demigods, men, and lower animals, assuming the roles of incarnations. He performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. That's his purpose. Attract the hearts and the minds of everybody, and specifically to elevate people to the quality of pure goodness, and once in pure goodness, to take them back to him. That's his purpose. And he's very compassionate, and he's all powerful, so he appears many times, not only one time, or in one form, or one country, or one language, or one anything. He's unlimited, and he appears many, many times over the course of the expanse of time. Purpose, reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. a sub idea of that is those that are not in the mode of pure goodness, to bring them to the point of pure goodness by seeing, hearing, remembering, etc., of the pure, all pure Supreme. And not chronologically, but quite logically, the prior verse in Canto 1, Chapter 1, is expressed like this. I'm going to read text 17, 18, 19. And there are 17, according to Jiva Goswami. This expresses question number 3, to which we'll hear the answer. His transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narada sing of them. Please, therefore, speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations. So please describe the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world and their transcendental activities. That's a question. Question number 3, or topic number 3. The next 2 verses amplify that statement. Please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations, such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers. And again, text 19, we never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So the answer is going to come in text number 30, which reads, this is 1:2:30. In the beginning of the material creation, that absolute personality, Godhead Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his internal potency. So the question is specifically related to creation. It's not all the incarnations or the avatars of the Lord are involved in creation. It's the Purusha avatar specifically, because that topic was discussed in this section, Canto 1, Chapter 2. For the matters of creation, the power of cause and effect that we see operating around us, anywhere you look, like, objects fall to the ground. So science has its explanation, and the Vedas has its explanation. Without going into it, what's behind gravity? And whatever other explanations might be given about why objects fall, or whatever other cause and effect events in this world, what's behind the prior cause? Because that cause is the effect of some prior cause. So what's the original cause? You go back and back and back and back, and there's the original cause of all causes. Sarvakarana Karanam. So with creation, and then there's details about, other than for the creation, forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. Texts 31 through 33 continue with the response. But then the further cantos of the Bhagavatam are going to give further detail about the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. So question 3, what is the purpose? Question 4 is, what adventures does the Lord perform, especially in relation to creation? And that's the first 4 of the 6 questions and the answers to those 6 questions. And the in capsule form, this little summary now. The entire process of bhakti capsulized or summarized in 6 short verses that explain how persons in this age of Kali, influenced by darkness of ignorance, can be brought to the bhakti position. The glory of that bhakti position. One of the questions is the bhakti is the intended fruit of all Vedic instruction. Whatever it is that can bring one to the position of loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's the essence of these messages. Exactly what Prabhupada said, because I listened to it 6 times. This Hare Krishna video, just to repeat, because it's so simply put. A television interviewer asked Prabhupada, did you have a problem or conflict with other religions? And Prabhupada's immediate answer was no conflict, because real religion means to awaken love of God, and that which awakens love of God has no conflict with whatever awakens love of God. Now, he didn't get into not when love of God doesn't awaken, that's when you have conflict. But that was his answer. The essence of spiritual teaching from any background, religion or language or culture, is to awaken love of God. And that's the effect of bhakti, is an awakened love of God. And love of God is to serve him in practical ways. So that's what's the subject matter of these first 4 questions, first 4 answers, a little mini summary of the first 2 chapters of Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'll end with this. In one sense, our acharyas have described, in those first 3 chapters, the essence of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is there. Say it the other way. If you can understand those first 3 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, you've understood Srimad Bhagavatam. And then further verses of Srimad Bhagavatam are elaborating on those essential messages of the first 3 chapters. And it enhances your understanding and appreciation of the questions and the answers, but they're very important questions and very succinct answers to essences of this supreme transcendental literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. So next week we'll conclude the final 2 questions and the final 2 answers to those questions. And there's going to be a very juicy bonus. And those of you that are listening, please take a look. Don't wait just for the Sunday class. Take a look at the material that you'll be receiving, because it's going to explain the meaning of a Paribhasa Sutra and what it is in Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's in that next chapter. Although it's not one of the 6 questions, 6 answers, but we'll spend more time on that topic than even the other topics because of its importance for the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. Please read the material. So we'll have some nice discussions at the end. And I'm going to end there, see if there's some, what we've been doing is the persons in the room may speak first, and that allows people online to ask their questions. But you have some online questions already? Nothing yet. So in the room, any comments or questions you'd like to raise?
So the question I have is, as you were mentioning about the technicalities of some of the terms, like kalaha, the plenary portions.
Yeah.
Because later on in the initial few verses of 3rd chapter, It describes about the Purusha avatars and
Yes.
uh, so. And then fast forward a few more chapters in the 10th and 11th chapters, I believe there are some prayers by the Dwaraka, the ladies of Dwaraka when Krishna was visiting, they were offering prayers. I'm not sure if I'm quoting the 10th chapter, 11th chapter, but later on Bhagavatam, we read several devotees, especially those who may not be thought of as technically, I guess, uh, scholarly persons, but ordinary devotees like the ladies of Dwaraka who offer similar prayers. But even when I read those prayers, it seems like they're
Really elevated.
elevated. So I think it comes out of realization that when they see and they have the devotion. I'm just trying to clarify that the devotion is the underlying principle to achieving that deeper knowledge or realization of the various aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
And their bhakti and their sadhusanga. They associate with perfected souls. That's pretty nice. And therefore, they're not academically oriented souls, but they have immense bhakti and they have super association. And even to not only to understand, but to be able to articulate what they understand. Sometimes we have an understanding, we have a hard time conveying it. So they're gifted in many ways, but it's those two main things, the bhakti and the association. Because the association helps kindle bhakti. It grows stronger and clearer and brighter. So yes, to your question or comment. Something further.
Thank you.
Okay. Our room is silent. You have something? No.
Hare Krishna, would anyone from the Indianapolis group like to ask a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. I was wondering, Maharaj, the sages asked two questions that are somewhat related.
Yes.
One question that they ask is they want to hear about the Lord's activities in relation to creation. And then they also ask that they want to hear the activities of the Lord's incarnations. And it appears that they don't directly ask to hear about Krishna's lila, like his own pastimes. And is it the case that they don't ask because this is the Lord's plan that the readers are not qualified to hear by that point? Or do they ask, and then ultimately the 10th canto is the answer to that question? And I guess a related question with that I have is that it feels as though devotees in present times also don't discuss Krishna's lila as often as the activities of the incarnations and the devotees of the Lord. So is there a specific reason for that? Like Srila Prabhupada gave us the Krishna book, but in our temples we read the Bhagavad-Gita, the Bhagavatam every day, but we don't read the Krishna book every day. And is there a relationship?
Okay. When you throw two balls at somebody at the same time and say catch, it's a little hard.
Sorry, right?
But I'll try to take one at a time because I'm juggling here. The pastimes of Krishna, your first question, as far as I can understand, is there a reason why they did not explicitly ask about Krishna's pastimes? Rather, they asked about the pastimes of the Lord, the adventures of the Lord specific to the matters of creation, and then later the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. But they're not specifically asking about Krishna's activities in Krishna's form. And is there some reason for that? That's my understanding of your question. Did I get it?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Okay. Well, why it wasn't explicit may be their qualification, not as yet having an understanding of Krishna's unique position and therefore not singling out. I mean, I guess the short answer is I don't know, but they didn't single it out either because this is just intuition, because Krishna induced them to not single him out for whatever reason, or they did not yet have an understanding of Krishna's unique position amongst the avatars. But that's found in the answer in chapter 3, that amongst all the avatars, which people are more commonly familiar with, Sutta is giving the unique and exclusive exalted position of Krishna, which, so again, either they didn't have that understanding yet, or Krishna induced them to ask the way that they asked. So we get Sutta Goswami to give his unique position of Krishna answer. And the second, I don't know if that's satisfying, but that's my thought on your question. And the second question has to do with the emphasis that Prabhupada gave on Krishna's pastime, specifically dedicating a whole book, Krishna book, which is a summary study of the 10th canto, in addition to his intention to complete the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, which has 12 cantos. So I'm not so clear what the second question is. Could you summarize what is it about the Krishna book and Krishna and the emphasis in the Bhagavatam on Krishna's pastimes? The longest chapter in the whole, the longest canto in the whole Bhagavatam is Krishna's pastimes, in and out of Vrindavan. So now,
The question that I was asking in regards to that is that it appears that in our movement, we don't directly discuss Krishna's pastimes that often. Like, as much as one would think that, since the Krishna is...
I see. Okay.
We mainly discuss other topics.
Well, that's an interesting comment, because I've heard many devotees say, what's with you people? You don't talk, Ramayan is so celebrated, and he's like not only in the back seat, he's in the trunk. And, you give some token attention to this one, that one, but, there's Das avatars, not just one. Come on. And, I've heard those kinds of comments from others. But that is to say, we do place a not an exclusive emphasis on Krishna, but Krishna emphasis, Hare Krishna. In some places they say the Hare Rama, Hare Krishna movement, but that's because they're used to the mantra being spoken that way. Anyway, aside from cultural, and then if you go to Trinidad, it's the Hare Bols. Because they're used to having the devotees say Hare Bol, not Hare Krishna. So why reading and reciting and explaining may have something to do with the emphasis that Prabhupada gave on become qualified in the first 9 cantos before you go to 10th canto. And maybe speakers or followers of those speakers don't feel themselves, rightly so, qualified and eligible to discuss Krishna's pastime so much, because they want to really become qualified to be able to relish and appreciate and not, get some cheap or incomplete understanding of Krishna's pastimes. Maybe some reasons like that, the kind of emphasis that Prabhupada gave for his followers, don't go straight to the 10th canto, although he produced the Krishna book. Now, I'm sure you know, there may be some people attending this class that don't. I'll share. Anecdotally, we became very accustomed, before Krishna book came out, to Prabhupada. He had a big, not just a hammer, but a sledgehammer. And he really slammed the don't go to the 10th canto. And Sahajiyas, they go to the 10th canto, and they specifically go to the Gopi-Gita section of the 10th canto, and as if, and on and on and on in so many different ways. We're not interested in Bhagavad-Gita because that's a battlefield. We're interested in Krishna and Vrindavan, and we're especially interested in Krishna and the Gopis. As if Krishna with Arjuna is, not so important or not so interesting or not so transcendental. After all, it's a battle. And anyway, so he would emphasize over and over the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is learn the earlier cantos before going on, and over with a sledgehammer. And then he published Krishna book. And we were, many of us, I was one, was, wow, what's going on? He did exactly what he said not to do. It looked like. But the explanation given why he did what he did was he wanted the world, who would hear in course of time more about Krishna, and because of the lack of qualified speakers, they would hear from the Sahajiya type people that don't have the qualification, but go to the 10th canto and speak 10th canto, and especially the Krishna dancing with the gopis section. Unqualified people doing that. So he wanted to make this understanding of the entire 10th canto accessible for even worldly people. That was my understanding of his intention. So he presented, as he called it, a summary study, when in his words, that means I can do whatever I want. Meaning what he wanted to do was make the pastimes understandable, palatable, and palpable for worldly people that don't understand anything about transcendence. Because he didn't know how long he was going to live, and he wanted to leave that behind him, that boat to cross the ocean of 10th canto through the form of Krishna book. And just a little sharing, you may appreciate this. I know of, during this COVID-19 period, Rabindra Sarup Prabhu, I heard this from Shraddha, who assists him, is like secretary, that every day, Rabindra Sarup Prabhu gathers together devotees in that area where he lives, and they just hear Krishna book every day. Now, maybe he's the exception, and what you said is the rule. We don't hear much about Krishna's pastimes. And I guess I'm an exception too, because at least the past COVID-19, every morning, every evening, every morning, every evening, every morning, every evening, it's different chapters from Canto 10 with commentaries of the acharyas and people saying, wow, that's way over my head. And but it's nice medicine. So a short summary is, maybe because of the emphasis that Prabhupada gave, maybe because persons don't feel themselves qualified yet to enter into those topics. And there's the Bhagavatam is really full. The story of Prahlad Maharaj and the story of Dhruva Maharaj in particular those two celebrated personalities and the section of the Bhagavatam connected to them. So important. And so best to lay the foundation before going to the third floor.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Or the 12th floor. I was visiting a home yesterday and we were on the 12th floor. I wasn't feeling dizzy because we were indoors. But it was really high up in here. So anyone else? We have some online questions. Okay.
So this is from Venkatesh Prabhu in
Okay.
Indianapolis. When preaching, we always say that by practice of bhakti, we will go back to Godhead. So does it mean that our bhakti is motivated?
Of course it's motivated. Spiritually motivated. Back to God, it is a spiritual motivation. Materially motivated, there's material motivations too, aside from the spiritual ones. But that's a spiritual one. Here's something that Prabhupada expressed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught a very high teaching. And for those of us that are not on that high platform, it's good to hanker. It's good to hanker to be with Krishna. And when you're very elevated, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was expressing, he can do with me whatever he likes. But to speak like that at this stage, that's artificial. It doesn't match our position spiritually. And so it's good to be eager to be with Krishna again.
This is from Vidyasaran Potinedi. Can you help me understand whether mercy is available all the time, every time, as Krishna is equal and similar to sun rays which are distributed equally without any qualification?
I think you've answered your own question. So, but I'll repeat your answer. Just like the sun, so Krishna's mercy. And does the sun say, well, I'm going to shine over here, but not over there? The sun doesn't do it like that. The sun shines everywhere. Similarly, Krishna's mercy is everywhere. Now, if somebody hides under a rock, then they're not going to be exposed to sunshine. Similarly, Krishna's mercy is everywhere, and some persons may have turned their back to Krishna and not see, or understand, or feel his mercy. So the simple solution is turn your face to the sun, and you'll see sunshine. Turn your attention to Krishna, you'll feel his mercy. Small thing, turn your attention toward Krishna. So there's the short answer. Turn your attention toward Krishna, you'll feel his mercy because he's merciful. It may not look like what you would want it to look like. That's because you're not the controller and Krishna is the controller. But that mercy will come however Krishna wants and understands it's best for that mercy to come to you. Turn your face to Krishna.
This is from Ramya Natraj. As you know, hearing is something that I really enjoy. Reading is something where I'm still trying to cultivate that same enjoyment for. What should be the mood when I read so that I can develop that same enjoyment?
Well, pretend you're hearing or read out loud. Or read with somebody aloud. And then you're hearing. trick the mind. But the sound vibration is special, so read aloud. Read aloud.
This is from Sri Radhika. What is the correlation between the 10 main topics that are discussed in the Bhagavatam and the 6 questions? In other words, is there a listing of how the answering to the 6 questions encompass the 10 topics?
Maybe some scholarly Vaishnav somewhere along in the course of the history of time has made that correlation. I'm unaware of it. But there's Model A and Model B and Model C and Model D that are models of how to summarize the essence of the Bhagavatam. Because you can add to that list, what about the Chaturshloki verses? And then you can add some other ones, and the Paribhashya Sutra. And you can, scholars may have done that, and I'm unfamiliar with anyone who has done that. But it's just a very simple approach. It's a different lens to look at what is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And each one is authoritative lens. So we look and we see, oh, how about this one? The Dasa Mula Tattva of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Is there correlation between these 6 and that? And, so there's other lenses with which to look at the message of the Bhagavatam.
Another question from her. Since my only reading of Srimad Bhagavatam happens with my children, and we pick and choose topics from different cantos, my reading is very haphazard. And at least until they go off to college, I don't anticipate having time to read Srimad Bhagavatam systematically. Am I making a proper time, place, circumstance adjustment, or should I just strive to create time for systematic reading?
I don't think you have to wait till they go off to college. But, Arudha Mataji can probably guide you in that question because she's been through it as a mother and guiding other mothers. I think, at some point in time before they go off to college, you need to have over there in your time management plan something where you're not just reading with your children selected passages, unless it's, you read the entire unselected Bhagavatam with your children. If that's, that maybe that's another model, but speak with Arudha about that.
Is it online? Anyone else from the Indianapolis group?
Okay.
This is from Sham Madhavi. As we progress in our devotional service, it is said that Krishna tests our faith by giving us some difficulties to be stronger in our devotional service. How to be strong and increase our faith than what it was before?
Well, go through Krishna's test. You've answered your question.
I think the question is, as we're going through those tests, how do we
recognize that Krishna is being very kind and he's helping me get stronger. And you smile and you stand tall, saying, Krishna, I need your help, but I'm ready because I knew it was coming and here it is, and I'm ready. Krishna, please help me. Then you have strength beyond whatever the strength that you had before. You forget to do that, you're going to feel, oh, wait a minute. Why is this happening to me? And things like that. So now, Gopal Hari, last week, you took this opportunity of the questions became exhausted and you did your one round of japa together with all the devotees. So are you prepared for that just now? Unmute yourself and let us hear. I'll try again. Gopal Hari, unmute yourself. And let us know if there's time and if it's something you would like to do to involve everybody as you do every Sunday in one round of japa.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Devi Murthy, Devi Dasi, Gopal Hari. Maharaj, he has actually gone. He got a call. So, sorry.
Do you want to lead that japa session, or are we going to call it quits?
Generally, we do the japa before the class.
Yes, but last week he did it at the end.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can do it now, Maharaj.
Okay, so I'm not twisting your arm or anything. If you feel it's best to just call it an end of the day, it's fine. But if you feel it's good, then you can do the needful.
Yes, we can do it, Maharaj. We can do it.
So everybody, thank you so much. And the Indianapolis folks stay online, and everybody else can join the japa session or whatever you'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay.